Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully, everybody is out there building, whether it be the building of a new foundation, the building of soul connections, the building of family, so on and so forth, resources, regardless of what it is. Hopefully, everybody is out there building. And if you are not out there building, if you are out there destroying instead, understand that it is the same energy, just different degrees of the same scale. So whether you are building, adding on, or taking away, it is the same scale, just various degrees. So if you are on the other side of it, just bring yourself back to the center point, and you'll be good to go. So this is what I've realized. If I want to talk about what I have learned in my journeys of all this, the less I speak, the more I am at peace. The less I speak, the more I am at peace. So in order to test this theory, this is why I decided to stop live streaming for a while. Let me put it down. Let me test the theory. Let me just not stop live streaming, just stop speaking if I don't have to. So just living life, speaking subtly, if at all. And over time, I became more at peace versus when I had an uncontrolled tongue. And what I mean by an uncontrolled tongue, just putting the wisdom before the knowledge, meaning speaking before you think, having emotional reactions instead of mental responses. Whenever I put that two before that one, it always spiraled into things that could have been avoided one way or another. So because these things could have been avoided by my tongue, as they say, life and death, let me turn this down, life and death are in the mouth of the beholder, or the tongue of the beholder. The tongue is stronger than any sword, or more powerful than any pen. All right? So at the end of the day, this is what I mean by building. You must continue to grind. You must continue to stack. You must continue to reach the apex of your pyramid. But this is the thing, as above, so below. So once you reach the apex of your physical pyramid, you know that another pyramid had generated above you on the astral level. So you got the pyramid going like this, which generates another pyramid that goes like this, if you can comprehend what I'm saying. So once you start building that astral, you've solidified the foundation, then you start building on that astral. When you start building on the astral plane, you understand that the more subtle vibrations of life become more important, such as, again, speaking is so natural. You can speak without thinking just because of how natural it is. It's a natural form of self-expression. But to apply thought before speech, only a disciplined, principled person finds value in that. What I mean by finding value in that is we live in times where people want to observe train wrecks. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is we live in times where people are more entertained by whatever theatrics people choose to display. And because we live in times where the theatrics have been, you can say, put on a pedestal, how much shit can you kick up? How much drama can you start? How much can you get people talking about you becomes more important than your character. So we live in a society where character has become secondary and theatrics have become primary. And because of this climate, it's easy to fall victim to that philosophy because, again, you see people paying their rent, paying their mortgages, taking care of their families, but they are morally corrupt But this is also what business is. Business has no moral compass. It's all about the dollar. So people will give you a platform to become the train wreck that you are, or to further express that train wreck mentality because it generates revenue. You know what I mean? Shows, again, I don't want to put any shows, into the category. You already know, just put whatever show you want to, or just whatever lifestyle you want to put there. So we are in times where it's kind of like you are being pushed in a direction to show forth you being non-disciplined. Because this is a secret behind it. Because I'm not speaking about these things as if it's right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm just explaining that the dynamics that are presented before us allow us to observe more readily the secret science that is not seen, sometimes not even heard. What do I mean by this? Because we are in times that allow us to be whoever we choose. You can be whoever you want on this internet. Some people look at that as a bad thing. Some people look at that as a good thing. It's not about whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong. It's not about whether the internet has killed social skills or it has increased people's social skills because it allows you to connect with more people. It's not really about, again, how we feel about it. We're just speaking about what is. So when people pay to see fights, to see drama, to see madness, this allows you to study the mentality and the psychology of the people. What do I mean by that? People will put a battery in your back just to continue to see you fall. What do I mean by that? People will essentially, again, pay you a large amount of money, give you a lot of support, just to see you cause chaos, right? This is what we see in today's times. We see a bunch of robots with batteries in their back. Whoever, whether it's a society, a foundation, people, whatever it may be, we have a bunch of people with batteries in their backs being charged from an external source. And because they're being charged from an external source instead of an internal source, instead of it coming from the heart, it's coming from, oh, this is what people want to see. This is what's going to get me views. This is what's going to get me clout. This is what's going to get people talking, so on and so forth. Because that is the mentality. Because again, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad. Business doesn't deal with moralism. So from a business perspective, it makes sense. And that's why I'm explaining from both sides, right? From both sides, we can understand where a person would choose to, you can say, be a puppet to a greater scheme versus creating your own schemes, your own games, catching your own plays. It's a mentality. See, there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being the builder, being a master builder. See, we are also in times where everybody feels, again, let me not speak absolutely. We are in times where many people feel that you have to be an entrepreneur. After all, that is the American spirit. America, not American. America was built off of the American spirit, and the American spirit is a spirit of war. America has always been known for, you can say, bloodshed, for madness, for being the bullies, right? That's not necessarily, you can't really channel it to a certain place or a certain type of people. We see this throughout the entire American history because that's just the nature of the continent. Again, whether it's North America, Central America, or South America, it is a war spirit. And when you possess the war spirit, or you can say the spirit of Mars, you can either take the form of the Scorpio or you can take the form of the Aries. Most people take the form of the Aries of building their self-identity, right? So you go to war to build your self-identity. This is what causes world wars and things of this nature. Because if you want to be the most powerful, if you want to be the most dominant, then you go to war to let that be known. Like, okay, well, the only way for us to figure out who's the top dog or who's the top boss, we're going to have to clash. And the last man and the last woman standing will be supreme. That's the mentality of the individual or individualism. It's about, all right, we got a battle, so okay, I'm going to set up my business over here down the block, and you got another business on the opposite corner. They both, you can say, sell the same goods. So business strategy requires you to figure out a way to get people to come to your store instead of the one down the street. So whether that requires you to lower your prices, maybe you gotta sell your things cheaper and take a temporary loss. As they say, you don't really start making money till the first 5 years, or after the first 5 years, you're pretty much just losing money because you are establishing yourself. So in the midst of establishing yourself, you may have to take a couple losses. So you may have to cut your prices just to compete. That's a way. It's not the way. It's just a way, because there's various strategies out there. But this is the way the business game is played. It's all about business strategy. So it's not enough to be an entrepreneur. It's not enough to start a business. Okay, let's just turn this music off. It's not enough to be the entrepreneur. It's not enough to be a person that, can generate revenue and can generate income. It's about laying that legacy, laying that foundation. And in the process of laying and establishing this foundation, of course, you will have to compete with other people who are essentially trying to do the same thing. But I spoke about the Aries. Let's talk about the Scorpio in terms of the warrior spirit. The Scorpio, on the other hand, hold on. Just play it from the phone. The Scorpio, on the other hand, is more about the night. It's more about, okay, I'm not going to let you know what I'm doing. You're just going to have to deal with it. What do I mean? You got the warrior, then you had the ninja. The warrior holds their sword up high. The emblem, because I tried to say emblem and symbol at the same time. The symbol or the emblem of justice is that sword. So for the Scorpio or the ninja, they're not necessarily going to allow you to know how they're going to take you out, or what type of methodology that they are dealing with, from the sense of you don't know what type of powers that they possess, because they're not letting it be known. They're not speaking. You don't see them. They just do business. You can walk into their store. Let's just say you are the rival store. You walk into their store. You wouldn't even know, like, yo, why are people coming here instead of my store? It's not going to be as obvious. Why? Because the ninja is practicing feng shui. They got their feng shui on. They are practicing the occult science. They're like, okay, I'm not going to face you like like two lions facing off with each other and the last lion standing. Like, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to rely on the quantum science. I'm going to rely on the darker or the deeper aspects of magic. I'm going to do things on a subtle level, and that's how I'm going to generate my income. Because this is also the American spirit, again, the energy of Mars. So you either are the warrior or you are the ninja. It's not about which one is better, which one is worse. It's all about who you are and what you resonate with, especially if we're talking about business, if we're talking about building a foundation, if we're talking about doing more than surviving here. This is a very tough place to be if you don't have that mentality. And this is what I mean by the influx of Eastern knowledge kind of has softened the American spirit, because now people understand what yoga is. They understand what meditation is. They understand what nirvana is. Let me not say they understand, because most people don't understand nirvana or, to reach that heavenly state. But they at least understand that there's various ways to go about everything, right? You know, the Eastern philosophy is just as normal as the Western philosophy at this point. So if you see a person, let's just say meditating or something, it's not going to really shut down the block. It may shut down the block, but it may not, because people are like, yo, what are you doing? They're like, okay, oh, you're meditating. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, because we have influxed the Eastern philosophy into the Western culture and the Western civilization, how does this add up? This is what I mean. The East is more like the ninja, the West is more like the warrior. So when you take that ninja mentality into a warrior territory, then you're going to be faced, you're going to be outnumbered, first and foremost. You're outnumbered. You don't really have the resources that they have. Again, you may not be able to get a bank loan to start a business. You may have to grind for yours. You know, you may have to put in some work straight from the earth in order to get what you need to build, while everyone else gets their bank loans. So your path is completely different when you have the Eastern mentality on Western soil. Because that's why they can do what they do over there. You can go to, let's just say, places like Tibet or whatever. Tibet, you got people living in mountains. You got people living outside of society, and because that's the culture, they are able to do that. They're able to live off the land. They're able to do what they do undisturbed, because that's the culture. You try doing that over here in Western civilization, you're going to be met with much oppression, because that's not how the dynamics work here. So because the dynamics are different here, even if we have the Eastern philosophy, again, we know about the chakras, we know about meditation, we know about yoga, we know about Buddhism, we know about Taoism, we know about Taoism, so on and so forth. And there's an esoteric nature of all those things. So you got the mainstream Buddhism, Taoism, Taoism, so on and so forth. Then you got the esoteric version. And again, the same thing goes for Christianity, Islam, Judaism, so on and so forth. Every system has what the people follow, then what the masters follow. Nonetheless, when you have the Eastern mentality or the Eastern philosophy, which I encourage everyone to do, this is why I constantly speak and tell people you must bring the entire world to you. The entire world must be at your fingertips. That's why you study the cultures. That's why you work with the spirits. That's why you work with the deities, because it connects you with those cultural norms in the sense of, I'll give you a perfect example of what I mean by that. Voodoo. Voodoo, right? You have various variations of voodoo. You got the voodoo, how they practice it in Haiti. You got the voodoo, how they practice it in New Orleans. You got the voodoo of how they practice it in the Mississippi Valley. They all had their own pantheons, their own spirits, their own deities. You can say it's all voodoo, it's all black magic. But there's variations based upon the land that they occupy. So let's just say, if you were to work with the voodoo spirits of New Orleans, if you were to ever go there, you will have a completely different experience, already being attuned to the frequency of the foundation that that land was built upon. You get what I'm saying? So, for example, if you go to California, you go to Los Angeles or whatever, and you know about the Lima, you know about Scientology, Dianetics, so on and so forth. Not to say that you follow any of it. You work with the deities, you understand it deeply, whether you agree with it or not. Again, it's not about getting our feelings about, again, right or wrong, good or bad. It's about whether you agree with it or no. It's not about whether you agree with it or not. It's more about, are you in tune with the frequency? Because when you are in tune with the spirits, they communicate with you, then they reveal information to you. So if you were to ever step foot on that soil, it's different for you versus someone who's just looking and observing. It's the same thing. If you go to Egypt, after working with Egyptian spirits directly, not just studying them, but working and interacting with them. When you go to Egypt, it's different because you have already unlocked dimensions of your mind that most people have not, who's just going as tourists. Most people go there as tourists. They're looking at pyramids, sphinx, the remains of temples, so on and so forth. But they're not really getting no real game. They're not getting no real game because you're not going to get no real game on the tour. That real game comes from full brain activation. You must have a fully activated brain. So when you go to these places anywhere, I'm just using examples, you go anywhere with a fully activated brain, the spirits come to you and they will allow you to interact with them and for you to be successful no matter where you go. Wherever you plant your feet, wherever you lay your head, you can make things happen quantumly with vibration, frequency, and sound. Vibration, frequency, sound are the keys to success. Not being the best businessman or businesswoman or the best entrepreneur. You know what I mean? It's not about that. We're going into the esoteric nature of these things. The best magician, the best alchemist is one who understands magic, but not only magic, but also science. So you understand not only the quantum physics, but you also understand physics. You know what I mean? You're not shunning away from science. You're not shunning away from mathematics. You're not shunning away from chemistry, biology, so on and so forth. Mathematics. You understand all of that like everybody else understands it, but because you understand the esoteric truth along with the common knowledge, it gives you a deeper insight. Now your knowledge becomes elevated into a living experience, a living reality, because you have connected the outside reality with the internal reality via sound, frequency, and vibration. Sound, frequency, and vibration is what connects us internally and externally. So for the people who don't understand this, which most people do not and never will because it's not seen or heard, you don't see or hear frequencies and vibrations. You may hear some depending on what they are. But if we're talking about thought, you don't see thought, you don't hear thought. We're talking about emotion, you don't see or hear. If we're talking about the senses, it's different. So at the end of the day, I know I say that. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what does that mean though? Meaning when all of the particles start to, you can say, distill back to the planet, precipitation, the water rises up, it comes back down, rises up, come back down. So when I say at the end of the day, we're talking about when the waters distill, when you have placed your attentions into the sky, into the clouds, so on and so forth. When you have placed your attention, when you have planted your seed, they will bear fruit. And the quality of that fruit is based upon the quality of that thought, the quality of that intent, the quality of everything that went into the planting, the atmosphere, the field, how well did you nourish those seeds, so on and so forth. So I'm giving random just variations of what I present. Again, we can talk about metaphysics all day. We can talk about occult science all day. But we also want to remain practical. We want to be able to still interact with the real world and understand what's going on out here and to understand what's going on the land and not necessarily detach ourselves from any of it because we may not agree with it. Because again, as long as we are here, we may not agree with the politics. We may not agree with the government. We may not agree with any of the structure of this country because we understand the foundations of it. Nonetheless, none of that is more powerful and infinite as the mind, as the mentality that you possess. This is what happens. The destruction happens in the mind. It's not really the body, it's the mind. So what I mean by that is a person can beat you A person can take everything you have. A person could humiliate you. A person can do anything to you physically. But if they are unable to break your spirit, then you will continue to prosper and succeed. This is what it means to be able to endure all forms of strife. This is what creates the spiritual warrior. So what's the difference between the warrior and the spiritual warrior? The spiritual warrior, again, you can say is equivalent to the ninja. You got the ninja, then you got the warrior. I say we had to be a combination of them both. So we know what the warrior is, have that emblem of justice. So what does that mean? So when you see the warrior holding up the sword, that means that is their principles. That is the foundation that they have built for themselves that keeps them alive. So for example, when you see that sword, you know it's a symbol of justice. It's a symbol of truth. So if you stand for justice and you stand for truth, you stand for freedom, you stand for equality. If you stand for those attributes, so when you hold that sword up, it's a extension of you. That sword is an extension of the principles that you hold dear to yourself. That's what gives that sword power. That's what gives that sword meaning. Because it is an extension of the lifestyle that the warrior lives. When it comes to the ninja, who was more about closer interaction in the sense of moving in the night. So we're not about going into a war zone and just fighting to the death. We're going to go into the cities and we're going to pretend to be like everyone else. We catch our target, we execute the kill, and we leave without being noticed. That is the ninja's mentality. I need to get this accomplished as quick as possible and not be seen or heard. So when people actually realize what happened, you're already outside the city and they don't know. You know what I mean? There's no trace of what went down. When things are properly planned, sometimes it's necessary to navigate in the dark. Sometimes it's necessary to navigate in the light. And because sometimes it's necessary to navigate in the dark and to navigate in the light, this is why the warrior spirit, or the energy of Mars, is what built up this country that we call America. And again, just the whole continent, North, Central, and South. So it is most important that the warrior spirit within us all be cultivated. And when the warrior spirit is cultivated, and we understand that center point is more important than that battlefield or that night, the night or the day, we must navigate right in the middle. And when we navigate right in the middle just means to remain practical, to not get fixated on, again, how we may feel about things, how we see things. Again, just like, it's equivalent to walking around angry and mad because we live in a country that, you know, that is very racist, or whatever the case is, right? This is a fact. But to be upset and to feel as if, oh, these people are holding me back because I can't get the bank loans, they're giving me a hard time, then you realize, okay, well, if they don't want to do it for me, I have to do it for myself. That's just the mentality it is. So we can argue and be mad about the dynamics of the country, or we can just realize I just have to do for self. That's the only way for me to be truly who I am without sacrificing my soul, as they say, selling the soul or whatever. If you don't want to sell, again, that's just a symbol or a parable of, if you're trying to get something from someone else, they're going to take you through loopholes. That's just the science. So if you come to somebody on your fucking knees, they're going to exploit you. That's what it means to sell your soul. It ain't got nothing to do with soul. It's just you are selling your originality for something that is temporary. You're selling something that can't be returned versus something that can be. So what does this mean? Either be angry or be at peace. And if you are angry, then mishaps happen to you, as I was explaining in the beginning of the video. When I'm angry, you know, when I put the wisdom before the knowledge, when I speak before I think, nothing good happens from that. I'm not saying that people will end up hurting all that, because when I look back and when I look back and reflect on how I felt, I'm like, I could have just shoved that off and just went on about my day. So, we're not going to be here too long. We're 30 minutes in, you know. That's the message. You know what I'm saying? I'm starting to sweat and shit. But, you know, I just want to keep it real for a minute. Again, I know I don't really do live streams as often as I used to, but this is why. You know, I had to do a experiment on myself. But in exchange, I offer daily content now. So I'm happy about that. I'm pretty sure everyone who stays in tune, you know, enjoys seeing the daily content. That's not going to stop. That's going to continue on for as long as possible, right? So, especially with the website as well, you know, so it ain't just a YouTube. So if you're paying the $5 a month for the website, you will be getting daily updates, whether you're getting articles or videos. So everything is going to be updated daily. You know what I mean? We're finally in a position where we can be focused. And what I mean by we, because it's a collective. Because if it's just me without anyone else, without any supporters, it doesn't make any sense. So it's a collective. We're on the same spaceship traveling through space and time, exploring the 88 constellations of the galaxy. This is what we do. So this is why the information that comes through is unlike anything else seen or heard anywhere else, because it's not from anywhere other than an original place. When we are dedicated to this lifestyle, we're able to extract information that is not known anywhere else, and we can apply it in a way that it hasn't been applied before, which results in the creation of a new parallel reality. See, this is what we do. We create parallel realities, and we merge the parallel reality with this reality, as we call manifestation. That's what manifestation means. Creating a parallel reality and merging it together instead of destroying this reality and replacing it with another. You are merging the two together until they become unified, and there is no difference between what you think and what you reflect outwardly. So we're